exploring lakes, rivers, and reservoirs across the country with an unyielding goal to enlighten viewers from a fisheye perspective. Come along and we'll investigate the habitat. Much more than a fishing show, this is an eye-opening aquatic experience. Welcome to Kim Stricker's Hook and Look. Over the past 8 seasons, Hook and Look has informed and captivated viewers from a rarely seen fisheye perspective. Fishing technique, habitat exploration, and lure effectiveness. Undoubtedly, a unique and revealing concept as it pertains to fishing shows. This week, Kim and Danny Stricker, along with other notable guests, celebrate the broadcast of Hook and Look's 100th episode to present a behind-the-scenes account of their one-of-a-kind program.
I can't believe, Dad, here we are on the road again. We've already done 100 episodes.
And you wonder, where'd the time go?
I don't know.
I do know one thing. There's been plenty of hurdles along the way.
Yeah, that's for sure.
You know, aside from the fishing and the tournament experience, it all probably started when I got my scuba certification when I was 17 years old. I mean, you started when you were 13.
Yeah, I saved up my lawn mowing money and I went out and got my certification at 13 and did it with a neighbor guy.
Glenn Lau, his work was an inspiration to me. The movie Big Mouth opened my eyes. You know, he was a mentor to me, and that's kind of where that side of our program came from. You graduated from UCF with a business degree, but you never had any formal videography training.
You're right, it wasn't until you handed me a camera that got me filming, and with the exception of the advice of some people in the industry, I'm still pretty much self-taught.
And speaking of advice from others in the industry, we've had a little help.
Kim, 100 episodes. How about that? You know, I mean, that is so amazing because in the beginning, when you came to me and you just had this idea, you know, you're having fun diving, you're learning a lot about it, and you had this idea.
We shot DVDs, but could we do it on a weekly basis?
And do it all over the country, and
that was one of our more serious concerns. Was there enough clear water around the country to accommodate our underwater format? Water clarity is probably the biggest challenge we face from a production standpoint. Having enough visibility to capture the underwater content needed is critical. We need a minimum of 8 feet of visibility, and there's plenty of clear water lakes and reservoirs which support smallmouths and spotted bass. However, largemouths predominantly reside in off-colored bodies of water across the country. In addition, largemouth tend to spook away from the bubbles we exhale. So as we approach, if there isn't enough visibility, the bass distance themselves before we can even get a glimpse of them. But fortunately, we're finding more and more film-friendly largemouth lakes than we first anticipated. But there's no question, without Strike King's involvement, without their support as our presenting sponsor, we would have never been able to get Hook and Look on the air.
You know, I don't think our viewers even realize that it was KVD who initially brought our show to Strike King's attention.
You are the one that went to Strike King on our behalf.
well, I knew just from looking at your DVDs that it would be super beneficial to a company like Strike King, who makes, you know, all these awesome lures, to be able to show people exactly what they do underwater and how the fish react to them. So I knew it would be a good idea, and to be honest with you, the main reason I wanted you to go to Strike King, because I sure didn't want to add a competitor doing the same thing.
You know, Strike King has done a lot of TV in its past. We actually own a production company, and I think To date, we sponsored 13 different shows on different networks. But the first time I saw the pilot of this show, Kevin VanDam brought it to us and said, dude, you need to partner with these guys. They've got something special. And Kevin knows what it takes to sell baits. He understands the arithmetic of business. And the first time I saw the pilot, I was amazed. You've got something that's incredible, the underwater footage, the strike shots. For a bait manufacturer, we were looking for something special that gets personal with the camera, and we need full frame shots of our baits and the fish interacting to them. Hook and Look, congratulations on that 100th episode. That's a big one.
If you like what you see on today's program, be sure to like us on Facebook as well. We'll be right back. Hook and Look is brought to you by Strike King Lure Company, #1 in fishing lures. Seagar, trust Seagar when everything is on the line. Power Pole, swift, silent, secure. Aquaview, reinventing underwater cameras. Deep Blue Coffee, dive in. And by Boat US, providing water towing and insurance programs to boaters. Welcome back to Hook and Look's 100th episode. Kim and Danny Stricker hesitate to even consider themselves as fishing mythbusters, but more like perception intensifiers, with the resolute philosophy that seeing is believing, and by observation, you'll become a much better angler.
Fishermen's perception of what's going on under the water isn't always entirely accurate, and that's something we learned early on.
Yeah, we learned there's usually a lot more fish present than you'd think. Remember, I even astonished Kevin and opened his eyes in regards to that.
You know, I knew it was going to be good, but the day when we did that show together, and I've fished up there lots, and we kind of have an idea of what's going on, but you just don't realize how many you fish by and how often those fish are around. More, you know, I mean, we think if we go out there and we don't catch them, and we had a tough day that day. I mean, we didn't go out there and catch 100 fish. You know, in my mind, it's because they weren't there. Well,
that's the
you prove that wrong. You know,
fisherman's perception, and if we can change your perception, and surprise you, that was unique the way that happened. All of a sudden, Danny, when he got in the water, all of a sudden the fish were there.
I mean, yeah, and they're like, there's nothing around here. And then they're chasing my lure, and I'm like, really? Come on. And I wouldn't even believe it until you showed me the footage, but you know, that's what's cool about it. So,
one of the most beneficial things about it, when a viewer watched you trying to trigger the fish, all the little jerks and things that you were doing, you know, fishermen that in the know looked at that and watched exactly what you're doing, and it was very beneficial. There's no question.
I've watched a lot of the shows, seen a lot of different things with different techniques, and all the different species of bass and all over the country that you've done. And you show a perspective on Hook and Look that you can't get anyplace else. So congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate all your help.
Hooking and looking.
Another feather in our cap was Tom Force. You know, we were very fortunate to have acquired his services. A radio personality and voice talent for more than 40 years in the Detroit area, the voice of Hook and Look, our good friend Tom Force has been with us since the show's inception. His warm, engaging, and descriptive delivery has complemented each and every episode since day one.
My thing has always been storytelling. I've always loved the great storytellers that I was exposed to either in films or on television, things like that. So doing that is something that I dearly love. What was really funny was I also teach voiceover classes around the country. And I was in Utah teaching a class when a woman kept looking at me, kind of like a dog turns his head sideways. And I said, well, I also narrate a fishing show called Hook and Look. And she just lit up. I watch that show all the time, all the way out in Utah. So being a part of Hook and Look has been a blast. I love it. I hope we keep going forever and ever.
The first chance I had to film with Hook and Look was in Traverse City, Michigan, and that's one of my favorite places in North America to fish. And we went to this lake, and really, it was one of the smaller lakes that I fished in that area. It's just saturated with lakes. And so we put the boat in, and I don't even know if we started the big motor, but we started up the bank, and just a little bit, Kim caught a fish. And I thought, man, this is awesome. And it was a good fish. It was like a 4-pounder. And then we go up a little bit more, and we don't catch anything, and Kim brings the boat back and catches another fish. And I'm going, well, they're here. And then it kind of backs off a little bit. We don't get into them, and that's fishing. We've all been there and done that. And then we went around the lake a piece or two, and I actually caught a fish or two, but I could tell that this one spot was really dear to Kim. You could tell by the way his body language was when he'd make a cast into it. He had a lot of confidence there. And so we get back in there, and he catches another one, I think. I don't really remember, but anyway, that's where they dove. And that's the cool thing about this show, is what's happening subsurface. Those guys went down, found this log that was completely crammed full of these big crayfish. And around these crayfish was a school of smallmouth that weighed 3.5 to 4 pounds that looked like piranhas. And they would move in on that log, and if a crayfish thought he was going to come out, they'd change his mind. That's the cool thing about this show. It teaches us what's going on down there. We get to see it, view it, engage in it, and learn from it.
Want more underwater content? Subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Strike King really keeps the angling aspect of our show fresh by coming up with new product. You know, it gives us the opportunity to closely scrutinize each and reveal their effectiveness.
I think I can safely say that no one has ever gotten a better look at the action and effectiveness of their lures, at least from a fisheye perspective, than you.
Yeah, you're probably right.
It was you that brought it to our attention that when stopping a red-eye shad, you need to give it some slack line to allow the bait to fall correctly, and it would impart an alluring action on the fall. Otherwise, it would just pendulum with little movement.
You know, in the bait manufacturing business, Strike King has actually learned a lot about our products from watching and DVRing and engaging with Hook and Look. We knew that our red-eye shad was a special bait, and we knew it was about the drop. We understood it, and that's when, on a running bait like that, that's when you stop that bait, you'll get a lot of strikes. And we all know that. But with the red-eye shad, Kim and Danny taught us that if you'll slack line that bait actually shimmies like a spoon on a vertical fall. It's insane to sit and watch it. You got to give it some line to get that action out of it. But again, that's what the show has done for Strike King, and that's what it's done for a viewer. It'll make you a better fisherman. It's not only entertainment, but if you'll really watch it, study it, understand the footage that you're seeing, it's really neat stuff.
Another underwater observation was in respect to bottom content and contradicted my flawed perception as to how my jig appeared to the bass. During a late fall shoot, I was rather astonished as to how hard the bass were striking my jig, taking into consideration the cold water temperature. However, later that day, when Danny got in the water, he revealed an explanation.
The bottom was so heavily silted that the jig was nearly buried. With each lift of the rod tip, a billowing cloud of silt would trail, much like a smoke screen, concealing the jig. It's no wonder why the bass were striking so hard. They must have been literally smashing into the bottom where it was puffing, which explains why my dad was removing bottom moss from some of the fish.
But again, my perception was wrong, and I wouldn't have believed the reality if I hadn't have seen it.
You know, another good example of seeing is believing is never have before has anyone ever captured an underwater view of a Ranger cutaway boat.
That's right.
That was something unique that we did.
Right. Eliminating any doubt to the upright and level flotation.
You know, for many years, Ranger Boats has prided itself on building cutaway boats, literally taking huge sections out of our product and showcasing it on the water so people can understand the differences in our construction. And for about that same amount of time, Kim Stricker's been running a Ranger boat, fished competitively out of it for a number of years as well. And it wasn't until Hook and Look was developed were we able to give the viewer a perspective from the fish or from the water So one of my fondest memories was when we did the show out of a Z520 cutaway, and Kim was able to showcase our boat from underneath the water and see this very same cutaway with huge sections cut out. In fact, I'm ready to do another one. Now that we're in the aluminum business, I think we can do that very same thing and show that viewer, again, from the fish's perspective, why our boat is different. And using hook and look is such an important part of that, because no other show does that. That's what makes this show unique, and it's also why we're so glad to be affiliated with the Stricker family and the Hook and Look show.
Coming up, some noteworthy instances to learn from. Right after this. This portion of Hook and Look is brought to you by Ranger Boats, still building legends one at a time. Evinrude, introducing the all-new Evinrude E-Tech G2. Cushit, world's most comfortable rod butt. Simms Fishing Products, the choice of professional guides and anglers worldwide. And by Sportfish Michigan, your source for the top charter captains and guides. Subsequent to each of Kim and Danny's underwater explorations, it's not until after they carefully review the underwater footage back in our studio that they determine, what does this mean to fishermen? What significance is there here that would be of interest to anglers over and above a captivating view?
No doubt, it's your creative insight, your knowledge of fishing, and your attention to detail that can really extract the meat and potatoes from that footage.
Yeah, but without your geek-like technical knowledge, I'd be lost doing so. In addition, it's you and you alone that provides me with a wide variety of angles and cutaways to work with. New this season has been your aerial shots, which add yet another dimension to the program. One of the most noteworthy things we've learned underwater is that through repetition, bass have the ability to learn, and we've documented that on more than one occasion. As if they were stepping stones, this smallmouth stops by each occasional boulder as it navigates across a seemingly featureless flat. These scattered rocks are like signposts, which the bass had learned over time and provides a reference as to its current position. That's why you should target your cast to individual structures and dark spots along a flat. The bass utilized these objects as a plotted course, which again, it had learned through repetition. We've also watched how largemouth repeatedly travel the same routes through thick grass, navigating the same beaten path in and out. We've learned that these thoroughfares are used by forage species as well, and once discovered, proved to be a reoccurring sweet spot.
Another observation has been that prime sweet spots are typically forage driven.
I'll be honest, I never realized the degree of influence that bluegill play as to the movement and location of largemouths until we began spending so much time underwater. Bluegill and largemouth bass evolved together, and the two species share a very important predator-prey relationship. And trust me, in bodies of water that don't have a large population of shad or herring, you need to pay special attention to the schools of bluegill. The same can be pretty much said about the significance schools of yellow perch have on the location and movement of smallmouth bass. This is an observation we've come across on many occasions. And in regards to smallmouths in the Great Lakes, we've certainly had the opportunity to witness firsthand the substantial impact the introduction of the round goby has made. First discovered in the St. Clair River in 1990, this invasive bottom dweller aggressively flourished, altering the dynamic of the food chain in its wake, and in many instances, shifting the location and feeding habits of Great Lakes smallmouth bass. A prolific breeder, gobies reproduce faster than a jackrabbit on a date and are currently widespread and abundant throughout the system. We've actually observed how gobies distribute their eggs in clusters, many on the ceiling of their burrow dwellings. Gobies are a small, soft-bodied baitfish lacking any spiny rayed fins. Resembling tasty little sausages and packed with nutrition, smallmouths and other game fish
quickly recognized the intruders as a rich and plentiful food source and have since fattened up. I could go on all day about the importance of forage species, but the point I'm trying to make is recognizing the available food source at hand can lead you to prime sweet spots. Understanding the habits and movements of the forage can assist you in making the best of it.
Always informative content for sure, accompanied by an eye-opening underwater view. For 8 seasons, Kim and Danny have strived to educate and entertain us. And now, to further sum up their 100 episodes, all in all, this father-son diving duo have been tutored by doctors, played with gridiron greats, accompanied Motown artists, and showcased some baits. They've slithered through slime, rumbled and tumbled, swam with sturgeons, succeeded and bumbled, and in tongue-in-cheek manner, when asked to recall, meandering with mermaids is what they enjoyed most of all. So they'll continue to cast and plunge in the brook, 'cause we're surely enlightened when they hook and they look.
We sincerely want to thank the network as well as all our sponsors for providing us the opportunity to come into your home each week.
And of course, we'd like to thank you, our viewers, for appreciating our work.
Now for the 100th time, we'll see you next week on
Hook and Look.
Hook and look.
Hook and look.
Hook and look. Hook and look. Hook and look.
Hook and Look is a Kim Stricker production.